So, welcome everybody to the official setup tour of the SJK Podcast.
2 years ago, I discovered one of the juiciest burgers in town, served by Tease Your Palate, and guess what? I'm thrilled to announce that they're sponsoring this video, and they've also opened a sister venture by the name Sicily by Tease. With the same service and with the same quality, they're serving you some delicious pizzas. All the details will be down in the description. Make sure to check them out.
So, let's see what we have. Let's have a seat. Firstly, we have a Shure SM58. So this is a dynamic microphone used by legendary people like Kurt Cobain and a lot of singers, even stand-up comedians. They usually have this microphone, and it's great for vocals as well as podcast situations. Then we have my headphones. The headphone choice that I use personally are the Audio-Technica ATH M50X. These are actually the Bluetooth version, so you can listen it without aux cable as well. The reason I chose these are closed back headphones. So these headphones don't bleed out noises that come out. It's important to have closed back headphones because you don't want these headphones to leak out and then being captured by the microphone itself. So let's move on to the other half of the setup. We have a TV here. So this is where all our content gets displayed. Either it's music videos or any kind of content. So this is more for the guest to visualize some of the materials that we have. On the other side, this is another microphone. It's the Shure MV7. I think it can be used with a USB as well. This is also a dynamic microphone. So we have dynamic microphone as a whole. We actually switched to dynamic microphones fully because of their nature and how they actually sound. Condensers are mostly used by musicians, and this here is another Shure microphone. It's the same microphone, and the stand, as I said, all from New Road. And about the stand itself, these are actually cheaper than the boom kind of stands that we get. This costed me actually around 2,000 rupees. We also have headphones for the guest itself. And a lot of people might think why we use headphones. It's actually so that it helps to have an immersive conversation, because once we wear the headphones, we're locked in. The conversation gets more immersive once we wear our headphones because it's only us talking and not the background noise itself. And it's like we're closer to each other. So talking about the framing itself, we actually use a small lamp for the backlit, and this is how it looks when the lights are off. We actually shoot this way, and we normally have another backlight there. So now let's move on to the most important setup, the lighting. So here we have a softbox itself. So we have a grid attached to the softbox because the grid makes the shadows more softer. It gives us more controlled light over the subject. That's why we use a grid, and the light is the Godox SL60, and we got this whole setup off New Road. So any shop in New Road, you guys can find these Godox lights. These are a really good investment for podcasting because I think after audio, for me, it's actually lighting, not even the cameras. First the audio, second the light, and other things come for the setup. So we actually have two of these, one for the guest, one for me, and that's how we normally light it up. So these are the setups you normally see on camera, but what you guys don't see is what is behind the monitors. So let's see how this is actually recorded. So I'm right now behind the monitors. Let's have a seat. So first of all, I would like to explain what these are. So this is the audio recorder. It's the Evo 8. So it can record up to 4 people. So that's why you guys can see up to 4 people in my podcast. And we have a headphone amplifier that we use for our guest as well as me. So this helps to have multiple people for the guest as well as for me. So keeping this aside, so here now we have a 8M Mini Pro ISO. This was one of the best investment for me personally, because it does a lot of things for me. So this helps me edit the podcast live, and behind the camera we have Pranesh Dai, who actually does all the editing as well as everything. He navigates everything for the podcast. For an editor or anybody who's doing podcasts, it helps a lot. I know there's softwares like Autopod, but it's not completely reliable for me personally, and I use this. Works wonderfully. We also actually need a SSD, to be honest. SSD is hooked up normally here, and we actually operate. And what it actually does for the podcast is it live edits the podcast. So there are 4 buttons, which are the 4 cameras. So each of the button represents one of the camera. While switching, it actually edits the podcast for us. So that's there. And this is one of the, if not the best investment you can make for a podcast setup. Moving on, I have my laptop. It's the MSI GE66. I bought it in, I think, grade 11. Still running like a beast, even though there's some scratches here and there. But the primary focus for this laptop is recording the audio, editing the video, as well as showing the material for the podcast as we saw the TV. So everything gets done in this editing machine. And we also have another laptop, which is not mine. Pranesh Dai, who's our editor, uses another laptop for all of his editing as well, shorts. So normally we have 2 laptops. And here, so this is another screen. So this is where we actually see our cameras being switched. Here we don't have the cameras, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a B-roll here that shows how the podcast is done. So another thing that I would really like to stress while doing these podcasts are backups. So I stress this all the time. You guys need to have backups of backups of backups. Clip this again. Backups of backups of backups. Because there might be important guests in the other side, and if one file gets corrupted or one file does not get recorded, you still need a backup. For example, while shooting, we have one set of video recorded by the Blackmagic itself, and another set of video recorded by the SD cards that are inside the cameras. I'll show you guys the camera. One camera is being recorded. One camera is being used right now, but we also have backups for the audio itself. One backup is from the 8M Mini Pro ISO itself, and another backup is from this laptop. So while making a podcast setup, please make sure that you guys have backups, because if one footage is lost, your whole podcast gets corrupted, and it's not a good feeling, trust me. There have been close calls where we actually lost one of our files for the guest, but we retrieved it at last. And another thing that I want to stress is these equipments were not bought the second I started podcasting. I actually started YouTube back in 2016-15, and from there I kind of gathered a bit of gear, and gradually over the years it actually doubled, to be honest, because for a lot of people, you might like bikes, you might like, your favorite shoes, but for me it was gear first, always. And throughout the years I did some of the jobs, and yes, my parents did help a lot in terms of investing on the gears that I have now, but I also saved up for it, did 2-3 jobs, and then had enough money to actually invest in this podcast. And for my parents to actually invest this money, I actually had to prove them by keep on doing this podcast and being obsessed over it every single day. So I recommend you guys to start slow, because I'm going to have some of the clips here where we taped the microphone and did the podcast. And the first like 3-4 podcasts was not even in my house. It was actually at a place where I interned, right? So I hope you guys understand that this is not a thing that you guys, if you guys are starting out, this is not a thing that you guys can buy at the first day. And you should not, to be honest. It will grow gradually. And some of the money actually came from the sponsors as well. And I think, yeah, that's one of the things that I want to say. Yes, to be honest, I am grateful that I'm privileged enough to actually buy these gears. And for some people starting off, I know you guys can, and a lot of people can start just from a mobile or a small microphone. So if you guys want to do it, start small, then scale. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I know this week a podcast could not be published, but I still wanted to publish a content that actually helped you guys. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this video was informative to a point where this might help a lot of people. And maybe in the next video, we can also show you guys our workflow, how we manage guests and everything that goes inside shooting a podcast, scheduling a podcast. So if you guys want that, make sure to comment down below. And this is the SJK Podcast. I'm your host, Sahat Kasa. Until next time.